If you have lived in multiple places, how do you define home? For me, it should have been simple. I'm Vietnamese and I have been living in Vietnam for most of my life. But in 2019, I moved to Canada and have been living and working here ever since. Is home where I grew up or where I live now? So let's reflect on what home really means as I bring you on my recent trip back to my beautiful hometown, Ho Chi Minh City. The previous times that I have been back home, I always find myself asking, am I still the same person as I was before? The answer to that is obviously no. And I'm sure that even if you don't move, you have also changed a lot in the past 5 years. Me too. But my heart was just not ready to accept that sometimes I feel like a tourist when I'm back in a place once familiar to me. I wanted to just jump right back in and feel belonged again. This time, instead of trying to fit my old life back or fit my new life onto the trip, I try my best to just let things unfold naturally. That means discovering new places, new cafes, and observe how life unfolds here, rather than trying to make the puzzle pieces of the past and present fit when sometimes they don't quite align anymore, and that's okay. I'm a huge cat person and we have 2 cats back home. So we don't really have special names for them, we just use their fur color and add mèo, which means cat in Vietnamese, and our cats understand that. So this is Mèo Đen. We got her in the pandemic and she was actually a stray in my aunt's neighborhood. She's really demure and shy, but it's probably because she was a stray, so her guard is up more. And then we have Mèo Vàng, which is like the classic orange cat who wants lots of affection and attention. It's also interesting how they have really different personalities. They sadly don't get along so well, and it's mostly because Mèo Vàng always trying to start a fight, so we have to separate them. But I still love them both so much. Since it's a Lunar New Year, we're gonna eat bánh chưng. This is a savory sticky rice cake with pork belly, mung beans, and sticky rice wrapped in banana leaves, and it's boiled for hours and hours until all of the flavors mesh together beautifully. So it's a square cake, but we don't cut it with a knife. So here you can see from my mom demonstrating it, we would use the bamboo strings from the packaging to cut it in 8. You would place the strings on the cake and then flip it backwards and cross the strings so that it would cut it into 8. So to make sure that you remember which strings to pull, we usually would make a knot into the even number strings so that we know the correct order. For me, this dish always reminds me of family gathering, and you usually only get this during Tết or Lunar New Year, so if you're around Vietnam in late January and February, make sure to try some.
So I'm back home, but I'm definitely not used to the heat yet. I'm like so sweaty right now. You know, you've been gone when you went back to your old room and then it became a storage room for the family. That's the situation right now. But I finished unpacking most of my stuff and now it's really near the Lunar New Year, but I still want to get some stuff done before that. So let's go to a coffee shop. It's so sunny, so definitely cannot skip sunscreen. I usually do like sunscreen head to toe and then also bring like a hat or an umbrella because the sun here is super strong with my trusty umbrella for this cafe hopping trip. And in Asia, even when it's sunny, actually when it's sunny, that's when people bring umbrellas out. Sunny and raining to block the sun or block the rain. So don't feel shy about it. Just do it. it's good for your skin.
One of the things that I have missed dearly about Vietnam is the cafe culture. Oh my god, you can find a cafe for anything, for any vibes, and open at any time. If you're someone sensitive to the caffeine crash of Vietnamese iced coffee or café soda, I highly recommend trying Bạc Xỉu, which is a similar drink but has more milk, and I think it's the milk that really helps with mellowing down the caffeine and doesn't really give you that intense rush that Vietnamese café soda has. Back when I was living in Vietnam, cafes are one of my favorite places to study at because I feel like no matter how loud it is, I can still focus. Just seeing other people working on the things helped me motivate myself to work on my homework as well, or whatever I was working on. Besides hanging out with my family, one of the most exciting parts of this trip was catching up with my old friend, Doug. So we actually met in Canada during university, but now reuniting years later on the other side of the world in Vietnam. For me, I've always felt that the people that you meet totally share the experience you have with a place. And for me personally, I didn't really feel at home or belong in Canada until my third year of living there when I met Doug and my other close friends. So if you guys are listening to this, thank you, and I hope to see you again soon, wherever that may be. So after graduation, in my friend group, each of us moved to different places for new opportunities. I moved to Toronto for work, while Doug was the first to leave Canada and is now in Hong Kong. And after lots of Vietnamese coffee, Doug and I spent hours talking about our experiences in Canada and what it's like for him to now have left the country. I think it's an age-old debate for anyone who has lived abroad, which is, should we leave, should we stay, should we go back to our country, and a lot of those questions. But hearing Doug's stories helped me realize that life is still life anywhere. Life is still tough and complex, but also beautiful, whether it's in Canada, Hong Kong, Vietnam, China, or wherever. I know that finding out where to live is not a trivial decision, and if you're like me and like Doug, you might feel tied to a place because of things like visa, paperwork, and because you have spent so much time and effort to be there. But leaving the country for whatever reasons can still open a new chapter to a lot of new meaningful experiences. So all of this to say, I think that sometimes home doesn't have to be a permanent address for it to be meaningful. It can be a place you spent a few years in but have shaped you in important ways, and that's already a valid definition of home.
I love you, man. Oh my god. See me?
What do you need? Water? You want to put that in?
medical procedure. I can't check. No. You sure? You're gonna lose so much coconut water. No. High risk, zero reward. That's not how behavioral economics work, girl. Filling your lipstick before eating is one of the most confusing things. Yeah.
What's your experience? One thing I really wanted to do this trip back was actually taking my sister and mom out for a pottery painting session. They really love arts and craft, but they rarely have time to do things like this. So I wanted to take this opportunity to do some fun, artsy activity with them. As we were doing this activity, there was one question that popped in my head. How do other families express love? For us, we're still really awkward with our words and we don't say I love you verbally a lot. But one thing that I do know is that we try our best to show up for each other in actions. So that's why on this trip I wanted to take time to do some family activities together. And when I go home, my plane would also land at really awkward times in the day, sometimes really late at night or really early. But still, my mom would try her best to pick me up and call up my siblings on the way home to make sure that food is ready when we get home from the airport. And even when it's not regular mealtime, my mom would still sit with me at a table while we eat. Growing up, we had this tradition that we will always eat dinner together. And even my cats would eat when we start eating. And you know what? I used to take these moments for granted because I thought that, of course, family would eat together, right? But when I live abroad and start eating alone more often, I realized that those meal times with family and doing things together as a family were such a gift. I know that family dynamics can be really complicated. And my family is definitely not perfect. I still say things that hurt my mom and vice versa. But I think that it's important for me to show up for them as much as I can when I can.
Con nghĩ mẹ nên làm cho cái má nó màu hồng nữa. Cái màu này ăn nhiều.
So let's come back to the questions at the beginning. Where is home? And where do I feel belonged? I wish there is an easy answer because every time I come back to Vietnam or Canada, I always grapple with that conflict. Living abroad is such a personal journey, and everyone has different visa and passport status and reasons for where we are. So if you're dealing with the same questions, I feel you. But here's something I want us to remember. Yes, our minds can constantly weigh on the options, but physically, we can only be in one place at one time. So instead of asking, where is home? I think a more fitting question for people like us is, what makes home home? What helps you feel at home, even in a foreign country? And I think finding out what those anchors are will really help us when we feel disoriented. In Vietnam, my anchor is my family. And in Canada, it's work and the relationships that I have built. And in both places, it's something simple like having coffee in the morning that helps me feel familiar and at home no matter where I am. I think that's the light in all of the struggle of trying to find where we belong and where to live. Home doesn't have to be a single physical location, but it can be a collection of moments, experiences, and people that anchor us. And as long as we can carry those things with us, I think we can always find our way home, no matter where we are.